success, or like I got jobs looking back at it fairly quickly. I mean, like I moved out here when I was about 24, 26. I had my first staff job. That's like great, but like 2 years. But in those 2 years, I remember it feeling like it's just not going to happen. How long do I keep this up? Like I remember like being so depressed, like meeting one of my friends who had gone to law school at a wedding, and I'm like, I think I made the wrong decisions.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Mind my voice, it's been a busy period of podcasting with an incredible lineup, and this guest is no exception. Holy moly, Justin, what a great chat we had. The man created one of my favorite shows in Superstore, and enough said. Justin is reflective, engaging, and authentic. He has a really interesting story, and despite some setbacks and hurdles early in his career, Justin kept moving forward, and what he's been able to achieve in his life is truly phenomenal and inspiring. I hope you enjoy this chat as much as I have. For the Superstore fans, we dive into it near the end. I've also had a lot of the cast on the show, so check them out if that's your thing. Okay? Let's get into it. Justin Spitzer is a co-creator and executive producer of Denis Medical. Prior to that, he created and ran NBC comedies Superstore and American Auto. His other writing/producing credits include 7 seasons of The Office, as well as Scrubs, Committed, Courting Alex, and Mulaney. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot. And we chat about Superstore and leaving the show, creating shows, rejection and moving forward, collaborating and the writer's room, working on The Office, Bill Lawrence, When Shows End, pivoting from acting, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. I've been thinking about this for a while. Can you confirm this? I believe that you can juggle. I saw in your show that you can juggle. Can you tell me about this and how did you learn such a magical skill?
Wow, that I love that. That's the first thing we start with. This little, very unimpressive talent. No, I on a St. Denis episode, I can only juggle 3 balls.
That's pretty good.
I came in and actually I was just on set and the director was like, "Oh, we need something to cut to," and he's like, can anyone around here juggle?" And I was like, "I guess I can juggle." Like honestly, everyone thought like, "Oh, you put yourself in the show," and I'm like, "Yeah, I sometimes want to be in the show, but like I did not plan on like me juggling that day." So
That's great.
yeah, I went to a circus camp when I was a kid, and one day I was like, I can figure this out. And so
That's hilarious. Was this like you've been waiting for like God knows how many years, like finally I'm going to show the world my skills, or this just came completely out of, you had no idea?
No, this was not. I don't know if I have any skills, but that's definitely not one that I'd always planned on demonstrating.
I like how you're like, I don't know if I have any skills. And you've got like, for example, your show that you are the creator of, and you're like, I don't know if I have any skills, but yeah.
Aside from the main reason I'm here, that's all I do. That's all I'm gonna have.
We'll agree to disagree. Have you ever pulled out the juggling like at parties and stuff when you were learning? Did you do any of the magic, or was it purely the juggling?
No, it was just those 3 things. I was like, I just had like a really boring afternoon when I was a kid, and I was like, I could figure this out, but no. And then once I was like, I should be able to juggle 4, but no. Just
4 is very hard. I used to be able to do 3, but 4, Yeah, well, I also learned I was bored at school and someone taught me, but I kind of cheated and I would hold one of the balls and just kind of move it around so it looked a few little tricks of the trade. And what was that moment like where you, because I don't think I know in Superstore you're at the end, but I don't think you've done too much acting, especially in your own shows. Well, I know that you started out as an actor. Was that like quite a funny moment where you're like, finally? Because I'm sure as I do writing as well, I've got a few shows that I want to get made, and one almost got made. That's a story. We'll see if it comes up. And I want
Okay.
to put myself in it. Like, that's my dream. So I'm wondering what's kind of, have you been like tempted along the way? What's the relationship there?
It's funny because I did start off kind of wanting to act, and I still love. I mean, when I've had like a line here or there, I have like one line on an Office episode, and yeah, Superstore at the end. But I've always been pretty reluctant to suggest myself for things. You know, like when it's my show, I'm like,
Yeah,
because I have to say yes, kind of, and then it's like, who's going to tell me if I'm being bad, and like, am I taking away a job from someone who's actually good? So it felt like,
that's
you know,
nice of you.
Superstore, like the last, and I even just sort of vaguely brought it up, and luckily, like the staff encouraged it. But it was like, all right, the last customer of the show I created, I feel okay about that. And The Office, I think I read a line at a table read, and he said I could do it on screen. But I mean, yeah, there's still that part of me that's like a frustrated actor, but I'm not gonna demand that. You know,
I 100%. So, okay, this is ridiculous given where we're both at in our careers, but I've got at least 10 screenplays ready to go. And all of them, there's small parts, sometimes there's big parts, but I would always say to the cast, okay, this is made up in my head, so it's ridiculous. But I'd always say to, potentially the showrunner or the casting person, go, forget who I am. Can I do this? It's a yes or a no or a small one. I think that's like part of the writing process to put yourself, it's not really, but to put yourself in it. After like Superstore and doing the juggling, have you got a bit more of the bug or you're like not on your show?
yeah, I always feel reluctant. I mean, I tell so St. Dennis I co-created with Eric Legend, and he runs it, and I'm there as a resource. So I've said to him like, hey, if there's ever a thing for me, like I'd love to be fun to do like a line or something again. And they haven't called. So
That's also hilarious where you ask your co-showrunner, co-creator, and you're like, hey, if you're thinking of me, every actor can resonate where you've had it all the time where you're probably like at a party or whatever, and they're like, hey, if you think of me, but you're the guy like in charge of it and you still have to do that.
well,
That's
the
kind of
truth is,
scary.
I'm being honest. I mean, like, I think I am. How would I be as an actor? I think, I think I could do the line without breaking up and laughing. Probably. I think I could probably just by dint of having been in a writer's room so long, hit like comic timing to a certain extent.
Mm.
But outside of that, if there's like 50 skills to be an actor, I have one to two of them. Like I don't think I'd be a very good actor. So if I'm doing what's best for the show, I should not be on that side of the camera very much.
Okay, well, I'll put you in. You can play a tree. We'll figure it out.
I
We'll get you
appreciate
that
that.
big break, buddy. And on that, what I've always felt, I want to talk about, because you started out wanting to be an actor. How do you go? I'm sure when you're starting out with big monologues, like that scares me. The idea of saying like more than five lines in one go, that'd be terrifying to me. Is that something that you'd learned at that stage that you feel comfortable with? Or is that something like, oh, I only want to do a few lines or that type of thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of a monologue, how many? I mean, you do monologues for auditions and
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know how much. I mean, I guess there's the occasional show or movie with them, but not too many.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I look the advantage also. If I were ever to have lines in my own show, I mean, like when I'm writing lines in my scripts, they are what kind of feel natural to me. Even if it's in another character's voice, it kind of feels natural.
Yeah.
And then also, I always encourage actors like to make it their own to a certain extent. Like there's some times where a line needs to be word for word because it's only funny that way. But in
Yeah.
general, you know, if the comedy is coming from character and situation and not like a specific pun or something, then I'm not so nervous about the actor hitting the word for word. So like I think people putting it into their own voice is fine, and so it's I think a lot easier to act when you're kind of saying it a little how you're saying it. And but I have a lot of
Agreed.
respect for actors, especially like dramatic actors who like hit it word for word for word, and it still sounds so natural. I mean, I've known a couple of them, and that's an impressive skill.
I've never been on this side, but I've seen like some actors and their audition tapes, and there's no soundtrack, there's no other people, it's just kind of you and the camera. And I'm blown away how you can make like dead silence just so unbelievable. And you would have seen so many actors. Actually, well, this springs to mind from the casting side. You would have seen thousands of actors over your time, and so many of them would be brilliant, but they're just not right for the role.
Yeah.
You were talking about the acting side. A lot of actors like, oh, I wasn't good enough, I didn't get the role. What would you say to them when they've potentially actually done a good role, but maybe they're not just right? Like you've seen so much. Yeah.
It's because I mean, you're rarely honest with an actor after the audition. Like some actors shit the bed or just aren't good for that. And I'm not enough of an asshole to just be like, no, you weren't good. So it's hard for an actor to know, is someone, bullshitting them or not after that. But what I do tell like groups of actors, like when I speak to actors at a school or something, I tell them that exactly. Like there are people that read, and by the time it gets to the showrunner, like they've already weeded out a number of the actors. So you're seeing the top whatever 10 for a role or something. And if you're casting a pilot, say, then you're watching hundreds, because you're one. And a lot of them are really, really good. And there's a million reasons you don't cast someone. Like sometimes it's just you have another piece of the puzzle. And you're like, those two just don't work together, or someone else just has a funny look. And sometimes you cast someone who is probably objectively like a worse actor. I mean,
I know what you mean.
I mean, like if you could step out of yourself and be like, I think that person is probably less skilled that I'm casting than somebody else, but just not as right for this particular thing. It's such a visual thing,
It blows my mind, and I think I had one guest say that her eyes were green, but someone else had green eyes, and like, it's just not going to work. I'm like, wow, I don't want to be in that side of the business. That's brutal.
That is very specific. And then I'm always really amazed. There are a few actors that are, when it comes to comedy, there's something just funny about them that you can't even, not even what they do. I mean, like, I always use like Craig Robinson as like a perfect example of this. He played, Daryl in The Office, has done a lot of other things, but like, there's nothing you could give that guy that's not funny. And it's nothing I can point to. He just exudes comedy. It's just this, I can't define it. I don't even know why. And there's other people like that too, that I'm blown by that.
Did you ever watch Seinfeld where Kramer, the nun, falls in love with Kramer, and he's got the Kavoika or something? Like Craig Robinson just says the Kavoika. He's just got it. It just says,
yeah.
I
do vaguely remember that. That's that thing. So weird.
And maybe we'll start with, you first wanted to get into acting, but were you studying something prior to that? What was the goal, at college?
When I say acting, it was sort of like a vague, like, I did like, a little acting in high school. I went to this college, Northwestern, and they have a lot of entertainment things. So I was a film major, but I did a lot of theater there, and I took acting classes. And I kind of thought I'd probably like to do something in entertainment. And I liked acting. I knew I probably wasn't a good enough actor to actually make a career of that, but I was like, I'll give it a shot. There are bad actors who have success. It's probably not a good idea to go into it with that being like, I'm bad, but maybe I'll luck into it.
Yeah.
So I kind of like auditioned around for like a year and a half after school, but I think I knew in the back of my mind, this is just like a temp thing. I'm curious about the world. And then although writing is very, very difficult to get into, and a lot of people, try and fail, or it's not for them, it somehow it seemed more accessible to me, given the skill set. I mean, like I felt like, okay, I felt more confident about myself as a writer. I felt like I always was. What was I going to say? It's not like I knew like, I definitely want to be then a writer, but as soon as I started trying to do that, I was like, okay, this feels more like me. And I always figured like, and I'll go to law school if this doesn't work out. And a lot of lawyers or a lot of writers were thinking of law school at one point. It feels like they have similar.
Yeah, I've met so many. It's always law. I did accounting. I actually finished accounting, and so I worked as an accountant. And never again. But I understand. Well, did you have much pressure? Did you know anyone in the field? Like what? Because entertainment is, for a lot of people, so out of their realm. You watch it, but you never think you can actually do it.
Yeah, similar. I mean, I having gone to Northwestern, like because there's so many, actors and writers and directors, like they're like when I decided I moved to New York a little bit after college and then LA. And by the time I got to LA, there were a number of people I had gone to school with that like were all at like the ground level and starting to work their way up. Not like people that could like offer me a job or anything like that, but enough that like they could tell me where to begin. But
Oh,
I was not like I didn't grow up knowing entertainment people. Like it felt like a very different world. Like I don't know anything about this. I had like my dad's accountant's cousin was a writer, and there's always something like that. So like he read my material, but it was like so distant.
yeah, no, no. Your dad was like the CEO of Hollywood, like you still, well, hopefully need to be good. But I always find that so interesting when there's like no connections and someone still feels like inspired or there's something about it where you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. And writing, were you watch? I know you wrote like 5 spec scripts and
Yeah.
number
Oh
5
wow.
is Scrubs.
Yeah, yeah.
I know everything. But what actually made you put pen to paper? Because I've met, and I'm sure you've met hundreds, you probably met thousands, where people say they're a writer and people can define themselves as a writer however they want. I'm not going to take that away from them, but they can't put pen to paper.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
I don't think
hardest
so.
thing. But you did 5. So can you tell me, like, that blows my mind.
Yeah, no, it really was. I mean, I think like, I was in New York and I was like between jobs. I was like a PA for some like this early.com, and then I was doing like night, not editing, but like assistant editing at nights. And I was just kind of lost a little bit. And uh, I thought, oh, maybe I'd want to try writing features, but that seemed hard, and TV somehow seemed easier, which in retrospect, it's not at all. Like to get a TV job is very, very difficult. And but really, I there was some website I found that had like transcripts of like Frasier episodes. I'd never even watched a Frasier, so but I just started reading them,
Yeah.
and I still for a long time did this. I still do. I was like told myself like I don't know how to write this, but I feel like maybe I could fool someone into thinking I can write it. Like
Yep.
I was like, because I'm like I figured I know how to tell a joke. I'm not really a super funny person, but like if I work backwards, if I write down like thousands of the kinds of jokes and lines they would write, and then I distill them and shape it into something, I could somehow work backwards and like it really was like imposter syndrome. Like I was like I can fool people into thinking I'm a writer, and
Yeah.
that without kind of realizing that's what writing essentially is.
Mhm.
So I did it and showed it to friends and stuff, and people liked it. And then I did the same thing for like Will and Grace. And each time it was like, I wonder if I can just get a few of these and again, just fool people into thinking I can do it. And
That's crazy.
yeah, it was. I mean, when you're on staff, it is you're working front to back. You're like you come up with a story and then you have to write it. I
Yeah.
think if I'd started with that, it would have been too intimidating for me. But I was starting with like I have endless time. Let me just write incessantly copious amounts of jokes and stuff like that, and then I'll work backwards from there and figure out a story and a structure, and I
I
backed into it.
I think that's really important. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, if you're writing for yourself in a sense, as you said, there's no pressure, there's no other people in the room telling you this works, this doesn't work, and you're learning your skills. And especially as you're first starting out, the first script or the second script, you are improving so much. Even just learning, you're teaching yourself about structure, even if you're not reading a book or YouTube or whatever people. And there's just
Yeah.
that doesn't quite work or that works, and that's the master training at the start is actually putting pen to paper and writing those few things. So I think your approach was brilliant. Just keep on writing, and then eventually when you showed it, what was it like when you first showed it to a friend? Or I know it's a long time ago, but when you first put it out to the
I still
universe.
actually remember we had there's a group of alumni of Northwestern that like more actors than writers, but they would like somebody organized this thing or like once a week they like rented out a room and like people would like practice monologues or something or show people the one act they wrote, and that was where I just had like a table read ish, of everybody like sat around and read it, and it got like really really good responses, like way better than I
Oh,
had
nice.
enough that I felt like oh people do like it and they're not like just bullshitting me. And then the same with like a Will and Grace. It was those two that I wrote there. And then I wrote some other specs once I moved to LA, I think. But yeah, that was like where I felt like, okay, there's something.
That's pretty cool because you're probably, you mentioned imposter syndrome, which we all have, but you're probably terrified. There's probably a lot of pressure. And also, these are people that respect, or hopefully, or there's people that you admire to some degree. I would imagine, like the first time I showed it, I did a writing course and I was terrified. And it was only like 6 people. And I don't think any of them actually wanted to be writers. So I was like, oh, what are they going to think? Is this the end of my career before it's even started? And I was terrified and they laughed. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, and that's kept me going. That is so important. Not a fake laugh, a real laugh. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's really important. What brought you to LA then? Had you sold the Scrubs or what was the?
No, that wasn't for a couple years. I feel like later was Scrubs even. I think Scrubs was just starting to air when I was living in New York. But
Okay.
no, I just realized after talking to some people and reading some people that like there just wasn't gonna be there wasn't really writing in New York. I mean, I think there is a little, but not very much comedy television writing.
Yeah.
Then I'd have to go there, and I didn't really have much tie me to New York at the time. I mean, I was between jobs, or I'd been out of work for a while actually. Luckily, I'd had some savings, and my parents helped me, so let me like take some time off and just work on those scripts. But I couldn't do that indefinitely, and certainly not in Manhattan. So
Yeah.
I came out to LA for like a week or two, and like couch surfed and was like, okay, I think I can do this.
Oh,
Yeah, and then I was just like, yeah, I'll take the move. And I just started at the time dating my then girlfriend, now wife. So I like was
nice.
begging her. I was like, you should come out too. Like she was about to go to law school actually. But I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
come out, stay
crazy.
with me for a little bit. So she came out a few months later. But yeah, and then just got like internships here and like jobs as PAs. But and then yeah, the I wrote a Malcolm in the Middle script, and then I wrote one Scrubs, and then the one you're referring to is the sort of real brief is I'd gotten an agent at that point, which was its own challenge. Luckily, like my wife had gotten a job working as like an assistant at some agency, so she kept reminding them like, "Oh, Justin's out there." Like they'd read me, but didn't want to represent me yet.
Yeah.
But eventually, I did get an agent, and he used to play basketball with Bill Lawrence, who created
That's
Scrubs. And Bill
crazy
Lawrence,
cool.
10 years previous, ran the show Spin City, where he actually bought a spec someone right. Usually, people don't even read specs for their own shows, but he did.
Yeah.
And Scrubs was a show that would do these very out of the box kinds of concepty episodes. So my agent was like, if you wrote something really unusual, I bet I could maybe get him to read it. So I wrote this like, it was called like my butterfly, like a butterfly effect things, like the day unfolds one way, and then what if like a butterfly flapped its wings a different way, kind of like sliding doors type of show. And he read it, and it was great. I mean, I was assistant at the time, but he like met me for coffee, and he let me like come in, and he could have even just bought it if he liked it and just said bye, thank you. But he let me like sit with the writers for a couple weeks and be on set.
Whoa.
I mean, he was. I still am grateful to this day for it. He really didn't have to do any of that.
There's so many crazy moments. Okay, one, a lot of people have spoken about how kind he is. That's nice to hear because we always focus on the negative people. I like hearing about the positive people. But how crazy is that? You go to LA, you got your girlfriend at the time. You then convince her to come. She's potentially going to do law, and I know she's written heaps of stuff as well. She then stops the law, I assume partly because of you or bringing you out there. Then she then, creates her own career. Then through that, because you got her to come there, then you meet the agent. All of these things happen. Bill Lawrence happens to read your script, which doesn't normally happen, and then kind of sets you. I know that I think in one podcast you said you see the world as like chaos and destruction or whatever it is, but surely that like changes your perspective on like luck or fate or anything, or was that just random chaos that happened?
It's random. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I don't believe in fate or things happen for a reason or anything like that. I mean, look, you don't know what would have happened the other way. I'd like to think that if those sequences hadn't happened, I would have had some other success in another way, and not necessarily been. I'm sure my life would be different, and I'm pretty happy with my life and the successes I've had. So I guess then, given that, chances are I would be less successful if things hadn't unfolded that like. But out of a hundred permutations, like maybe one of those I would have been even happier, and two of them would be the same, and 96, I can't even do the math, would be like worse. But hopefully, if you are like hardworking and somewhat talented and stuff, you'll have some success. But I think luck was definitely a piece of it.
I like your take. I see the world slightly different, but I
Are
also it can
you
be very exhausting to being like, if this happened, then this could have happened, and then you do that, and then that could have, and then figuring out, okay, in that timeline, I could have. I know you wrote the script for Scrubs, where the sliding door moment that could have been hard, but it's very important.
wait, so
What
are you a things happen for a reason? We are all like have a place we're going to?
half of it,
Okay.
not fully. I think I don't even know how to put it to words. I'm constantly evolving. I'm not attached to any form of belief system, but I think there is an aspect, but I won't bore people with that. Maybe it'll come up in this conversation, but that's a
Okay.
hard one. I know it sounds like I have all the answers, but I don't.
Let's hope you
That's
can
my,
answer, yeah.
and from the, doing all of these different jobs and you said you were a PA and stuff. Once you kind of got that first, foot in the door, did you kind of see could you see your future of what it could look like, or was it like, how am I going to get to the next stage, or was, you're in the industry, things are moving for you?
It's so easy to like look back with I don't know if it's rose-colored glasses, but like to look at it more like, oh, I knew, and there was little setbacks along the time, but I needed that to get there. But no, I mean at the time it was like constant panic and dread, and like it's not going to work out, and I've even like I had success, or like I got jobs. Looking back at it fairly quickly, I mean, like I moved out here when I was about 24, 26. I had my first staff job. That's like
Yeah.
great, but like 2 years. But in those 2 years, I remember it feeling like it's just not going to happen. How long do I keep this up? Like I remember like being so depressed, like meeting one of my friends who had gone to law school at a wedding, and I'm like, I think I made the wrong decisions. And I mean, like, and yeah, and even once I had, I mean, uh, the Scrubs great, and then I remember it was like Bill was going to hire. He had another show that was about to go also, and he was going to hire like me on Scrubs as a staff writer or this other show, and then that other show didn't end up happening, and he had someone else. The story doesn't even matter, but like I
Yeah.
didn't get
No,
the
I
job
think
I
it's
thought I
important.
was, and I was like I can't get staffed. I had like my first staffing season. I didn't get a job. I had like all these meetings. And then, I think my first job, like, I don't think I was particularly good in the room. Like, I had, ADD. My mind kept like wandering. Like, I don't think I was pitching great stuff. And then after that year, I was like, I don't know if I get staffed again. And I remember my friend who was a writer being like, some people have to go back to being a writer's assistant again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to move backwards again. And,
Mhm.
again, like looking backwards, like it was like, oh my God, what was I even complaining about? Like a couple of years of like scrambling, like everybody has that. But when you're in it, it feels like, because you don't know when it's going to end. You don't,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I think I resonate with that 100%. When's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? Then especially where you perceive you might go back a step, but you know, that's already a whole topic in itself. But the mental hurdles that you go through in creative arts, just or in life as well, like when's it going to happen? But there's still some part of you that there's still that belief that you can do it, and you've gotten positive feedback. What was it that allowed you to keep on moving forward? Because you could have gone back to law school, maybe in inverted commas a bit harder, but what was that kept you going, not to quit?
I mean, I think look, I don't think I'm the kind of person that like, if I've been out here for 5 years and didn't have an agent yet and hadn't figured out anything, that I would have kept going. I think I probably would have bailed. And I think that's not even always such like a bad thing. I think like we people have these like platitudes of like, oh, keep going, never give up, like and it's like I always think I'll be on panels and people will be like, "What's the advice?" And people on like the panels, I'll be like, "Just don't give up ever." And it's like, yeah, but everybody on the panel here is on the panel because they eventually had some success. Like they don't have panels with the people that it didn't work out for. And and I'm so happy with like my career and how things worked out. But I'm very, very happy with like my family too, and like and being able to support them. And it's like there are more important things. I'll just say like I think I could have been happy as a lawyer or something too, and that would not have been like the end of the world. But I mean, at the time, I think maybe I'm not, maybe I'm wrong, but
I'm
I think I'm
sure.
happy.
Sorry for interjecting. I'm
No.
sure, like, yes, you could have done being a lawyer, but given what you've been able to do in the writing and the creative, I know there's a huge amount of stress in doing all the other shows and running shows, but I'm sure there's still that creative. You would have missed it if you were potentially being
Oh,
a lawyer, knowing.
don't get me wrong. Yes, no, I'm so happy doing this. I'm happy it worked out. But I just mean like I would not have wanted to. I, I think there's nothing wrong at a certain point in bailing if like it's not going to happen, and you're like, oh, am I going to be able to provide for family in the way I want to and stuff, like I think, but no, I'm very happy things worked out now. And I think back to your original question, what, like, to keep going, it was that I was having like incremental progress, like it was like a job, and then I got a job as like a writer's assistant, and that felt like one step forward, and then a writer's assistant on a comedy, and that was one step forward, and then like I got staffed on this show. My first job that wasn't that Scrubs thing was as a writer on like the Nick and Jessica Variety Hour. It's like this weird Nick Lachey was married to Jessica Simpson. They had this sketch show one-off kind of thing, and I realized like I'm not good at this. I'm not a sketch writer. I got nothing in the show. I didn't get fired because they only did it was a one-off special, but there's no way I would have come back. I got the words "thank you." That was my entire contribution that actually made it onto the air. And I was surrounded by really, really talented writers too. That show sounds like it's nothing thing, but it was like John Glazer was there, and John Benjamin, and it was Will Forte. Like there were some really, really impressive writers. And so then that felt like shitty. It's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But then I got a staff job on something else. So like, because I had that, it felt like I was taking a step forward, or two steps forward, one step back, but enough that I was getting closer.
That's brilliant. And I'm sure you probably were insecure where you're not getting anything made. But as you said, sketch writing is, well, in my opinion, they're completely different skills.
Very different. Yeah.
But just being in the room with those people, and given what we've been learning now, I feel like you would be able to absorb a lot as well. So yes, at the time you're probably feeling, average, that you're not getting anything made, but being around the room and learning that stuff, as you said, would have just pushed you so much forward as a writer, and also just collaborating with people in general, I would imagine as well.
Yeah. It was definitely a learning experience, and also learning. I don't know. It's like I kept on trying to write sketch. Maybe I've gotten a little better at it, but I think like that's its own thing. You have to be balls out funny, and those guys are like the ones I mentioned, and a bunch of other people that were on that show too. And I realized like, oh, I'm more towards the character and story end of the comedy. On the spectrum of comedies, that's more what I do. And I can tell a joke, but you need like a little bit of randomness, and you have to be just, I don't know. Those guys are really, really funny.
I'm giving you homework, but you don't actually have to do it. There's this Australian trio called Auntie Donna. They filmed their Netflix special, I think, in LA, and had all these American heavy hitters. And that is the wildest type of sketch. Maybe not for an American, but I don't think you guys have really had anything like that. And
Auntie Donna?
Auntie. Aunty. And one was so proud that they got this Netflix special. And, I think they had Anthony Starr and some other random cameos in it. And seeing how they do sketch, I don't even think it's their best work. I think they took out it's still hilarious, but it's crazy. They took out stuff from their other material and stuff. And I'm like, there's no way I can do something like this. Is way too crazy. This is hilarious. But that is just like, it's like you can't even call what I do writing compared to that, because it's just like it's a different field. But anyway, so that's your homework. But what happened after that show? You get your thank you. Does the panic, set in? What am I going to do next? How do you move forward?
Yeah, no, it was on that one. I was like, oh, I finally got a job, and I'm not good at this. And then, and the Scrubs didn't work out because for a long story, his show didn't go. And then, luckily I got staffed on the show called Committed. That was, I think actually a pretty funny half hours of multicam, this kind of like crazy love story. But that was actually the quick story there was, every writer loved the BBC Office, and I heard they were making it here, and I loved King of the Hill. And so it felt like I was like, everybody wanted to be on that show, but I had mentioned to my agent, I was like, if there's any way I could get there, and he's like, yeah, I'll send your stuff. Everyone's stuff is getting. So I didn't hear from him, and then I got I got this job on Committed. I was thrilled. And then after I'd accepted it, I got a call that Greg on the office wanted to meet with me, and what happened was like my specs had been sent over, but only like the odd pages, not the even pages, because like it was like they were two-sided. This was before there was email; they were hard copies, and so somehow only every other side.
That's hilarious.
And he was like, "Oh, this is interesting. I'd love to read the even pages." So by the time he read the full spec and requested a meeting, I'd taken this other thing. But he was like, come meet with me. So I sat down with him. He's famous for having these long meetings. I had this great long meeting, and then Committed went away. I got on this other show called Courting Alex. It was very short lived on CBS, also multicam. It went away, and meanwhile, I'm watching The Office become like The Office, and it's like the best show ever. And I didn't do anything wrong, so it wasn't like I was kicking myself. I was just like, oh, I wish. And then I was trying to get back in there, and someone who worked with Greg, like, I couldn't get back in because she was like, well, if he's met with him before and he didn't hire him, he doesn't want to hire him now. And my agent had to be like, no, he only met with him as like a courtesy because he'd already taken another job. But eventually it worked out. And then, yeah, I got to join the show season 3. And I was like, I've got to make up for lost time.
That's one of the, season 3. That's one of the, I've got so many questions in The Office, but I want to tie up a few points. But that is so unbelievably crazy. And potentially it worked in your favor where he's like, this is really interesting. I wonder what happens. It's like, that's like the ultimate teaser. I'm sure you've heard this story, but with Lost, for example, I think they added in a polar bear and all of these random things in the pilot. I don't know if they actually put it in the pilot. They used it as essentially, say that again?
The polar bear was part of the pilot. I remember that.
Yeah. And they reference it right at the end, but they added in all these random things in the pilot just so that it would, spark the producer's interest. They're like, oh, there's a polar bear, there's this, there's that. They did that deliberately. And so I think that's genius. But if I'm a network executive, I'll be so pissed off when you're just adding in things. Because, that definitely sparks your interest. So I feel like you had a good quality piece of material. And he's reading it, he's like, I really want to know what's happening in between.
No.
I've never heard a story like that. And this is over 300 episodes. That blows my mind.
It was pretty insane. Yeah.
And then from the I wouldn't even call it rejection, but as a writer, you've created many shows, but there's probably many shows that you've made or ideas where they haven't gone ahead. Has the pain of things not moving forward, from the Scrubs experience where you think you might work with Bill Lawrence and get that other show, but it doesn't go ahead, did that help soften the blow of the brutal nature of this industry?
Yeah. Well, I think, when something doesn't work out at the time, you're kicking yourself or you feel really bad. And yeah, I've had pilot that didn't go and it seemed bad. And then now I can look back at it in retrospect and be like, oh, well, if that pilot had gone to series, the pilot that I had the year before Superstore, then I wouldn't have done Superstore. And I don't think that show was as good. So, in retrospect, that really worked out. And I don't think that's always the case. I think sometimes something doesn't happen and you're like, oh, my life could have been better, for want of that. But for me, yeah, looking back now, I can't even remember those things that didn't work out. Like, it felt terrible that I was not a competent writer on the Nick and Jessica Variety Hour, but like, all right, that's fine. And like, it felt terrible when like pilots I've had that I really believed in at the time didn't go. But then I've had other shows that went that I wouldn't have been able to do if those worked out. So it's all so far so good. Yeah.
That is a brilliant and rare mindset. I love that. And we'll also talk about, I think you wrote American Auto, and then that becomes Superstore, and then helps you later for American Auto, but we'll get into that as well. Yeah. Are there any other shows that, people have said, no, it's not going to happen, where you're thinking, I can bring this back, or is it on to the next one? Like the, yeah.
No, one of my first pilots was this show called Startup, that I still believe in. Like, every couple of years, I'm like, hey, remember this? Like, it's one of those things where I'm like, how do they not see that this is such a good even if you don't like the script I wrote, and I know enough to be like, I may think it's good, but I'm attached to it, and not everything I write is going to be great, and that's fine. But I'm like, there's a show here. How do they not see that? But I can't get anyone to, even like a year ago, we kind of put it back into quasi development, but I don't know. I just haven't been able to. It's essentially like How I Met Your Mother, but instead of a relationship, it's a business. It's how a startup kind of like took over the world, told from the future, and then like you're going back and seeing how it happened. So it's like,
oh, cool.
I think, yeah.
And
anybody's out there listening.
Well, you've written so many things. Like, if you're confident in it, it should just be like, guys, I really believe in this. Look at all the other stuff I've done. Here it is. I want to hear your take on this. So, very long story short, I got offered a TV developmental deal. I won a writing award. Being seen people had said it's great. But then there's also some, like I entered prior to that writing competitions, and then some people like not good. And it's always so funny where you've got like an industry executive, production companies interested, you win a writing award, and then you've got some people that say no. And it obviously one piece of material is not going to be for everyone. How have you kind of balanced that? Because you only really need the one yes. Like I give this example, and it might be ridiculous. Curb Your Enthusiasm. I know like it's coming off Larry David and Seinfeld. Potentially that's a hard show to pitch if it was just Larry and it had nothing to do with Seinfeld, but obviously they could understand what was done before and you can see it. But maybe if that show's just brand new and fresh, that's hard to sell, but you just need the one yes. So what's kind of like your takeaway on, if everyone's saying no, you just need the one yes. Is that how you see it, or how do you?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think there's things I wrote like in my past that I've gone back and read and been like, oh, this is not good. I'm glad like this they were right, and I really believed in it at the time. So so that's enough to be like, I know I'm not. Sometimes people are correct, and I am too attached. But I also feel like, but I also recognize it's subjective, and if especially a script like. They might be reading it the wrong way, and so like I don't take it personally if I get no's on things really anymore. I probably did back in the day, much more so, but now I've had enough things where it's like they're just not seeing it the way I'm seeing it, or I pitch something and it's just like not for that platform, and that's fine. And things are not selling as much now, so like I've been taking out a few things now. I have two things I'm writing or co-writing now outside of St. Dennis, and it's like both of them only got one offer. Like I pitched it all around, I didn't get bid. It wasn't competitive. And it's like I had like one show. I don't think it's giving it away. It's a set of prison. It's a prison comedy, and like I'm like, oh, I think that's a funny world. People were like, oh, prison, too dark, too scary. And I'm like, okay, I don't see it as that. And but it just takes one buyer to be like, oh no, I see how this could be good. And now it's up to me to prove that can work. But I don't, I don't think other people are saying, look, maybe you always have to concede that, well, maybe this isn't good. Maybe I just didn't do a good job if something doesn't sell. But I also believe that people are like, I like you, I like your writing. The idea of a prison show is too dark for me, and that's fine.
I think that's very important for so many people where there's so many other variables. You just need that one yes, but also to look within this. Okay, I can talk about that for ages as well. But what I've always found, I know I'm jumping all over the gun. We'll get back to Superstore, American Auto, St. Dennis, The Office. The pitching aspect. A lot of writers I've met are quite introverted. So, speaking out in public or in meetings is quite difficult for them. Luckily, I'm an extrovert, I think. But that's still not something that's necessarily part of the skill set of being a writer. But pitching is so important, not only pitching jokes and story and all of that stuff. You don't think about that necessarily, or I didn't when you first start writing. But the idea of pitching to a network, how have you found that? Because I feel like that's a completely different skill set to, the actual craft of writing.
Yeah, I think it's something I've gotten a lot better at. I mean, I don't think you call me introverted, but I'm not super extroverted either, somewhere in the middle. But the pitching, I think I've gotten better as I've gotten more comfortable. I think, and there's so many different ways to do it, to pitch. So like for me, so when my wife pitches a show, she's off book. Like she memorizes it, like she knows it word for word, and she's super, I mean, she's a much better actress too. So I think she's able to act it out in a way that's not stilted, because some people will pitch. Now so many pitches are on Zoom, so it's like they're reading it, and it's like you feel like they're reading it. For me, it's more important. I'd rather it feel messier, but it's more important that it feel like a conversation, that I feel like I'm having fun with it. So I never read it word for word. I'll write it word for word, and I'll glance down at it. I don't try to pretend I'm not looking at it, but I'll put it in my old words a little bit, and if a joke happens to occur to me during it, I'll say it, or I see an exec have a reaction, I'll be like, oh yeah, you like I try to just make it. I feel like I think with writing too, it's so important to kind of, you're not doing this for you have to get in the mind of your audience, like you're creating a show. And same with pitching, I try to be like, all right, I'm an executive, I'm hearing 8, 12 pitches a day, I don't know how many they hear, and so many of them are like, if I'm just like kind of mundane, I'm going through the pieces, they're going to act like they're engaged, but they're just going to want to, I think I have a lot of attention problems too. And it's like, it's just they're gonna have to stop paying attention after a certain point. So I just feel like the more I can be engaging and personable, and and even if that means it seems a little messy, that's fine. Like I'm not trying to sell the pitch. I'm not trying to sell myself as a performer. I'm just trying to sell the show. And so if I can have fun with it, that's great. It's also why I always prefer to do pitches in person. Like it's just easy. It's outgoing. We're all just in it. It just feels like, I don't know, less, it's like if we're doing it on Zoom and everybody has their sound off anyway, I could just record myself doing it and just press play and go.
It's not the same. Yeah. I feel for actors that, have to do Zoom auditions as well, because there's still that energy element. You can feel something. There's just something. And I think not that I've had too many opportunities. I think your pitching approach is exactly how I'd go about it. But it's not like, hey, like Shark Tank. Hey, sharks, how you going? And then like fireworks and the door opens. You're right. You're selling. Or there's no right, but to me, it's not just selling like you're selling the whole show. And I've always found it interesting when I've heard other people, they can do like a 1 minute, 5 minute like elevator pitch, and like we love it. And I'm like, whoa, how does that it's like that blows my mind. I don't know how that works. Like you want to see the material, you want to understand the material, you can explain if they think the prison show is too dark, you can like get into that. But being able to sell something within a few minutes from a creative,
that's being concise is helpful. I'm not especially concise, and that's something I'm always working on, is trying to like, what do I actually need, and trying to keep things short, because I'll go on forever.
I would give up IP to a salesperson like that could sell a show in a few minutes. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Just so I don't forget, with The Office. So you get on The Office. So many writers want to do this, season 3, so it's already getting quite big, I believe, at that stage.
Yeah.
How does that feel? We've spoken about imposter syndrome. Was that scary? Was that exciting? What's going on?
That was so scary. It was like, because I'm still at the place in my career as a staff writer. I think by the time I think that was my first story editor job, but it was like, but I was still new enough that it felt like, oh, I'm just hanging on. Like, I don't know if I have a career here. And now all of a sudden I get on not just a show, but I get on like the show. Like it's becoming the biggest thing. I got on, they won the Emmy when I'd started, but they won it for season 2. So like they were about to win an Emmy there, but like the show was already becoming a phenomenon. And it was also my favorite show. I mean, I've had like Scrubs had been like one of my favorite shows before, and I got to do an episode there. So I was very lucky, and like for a lot of these shows, but like, so now I'm here. I come into my favorite show ever. It's the show that I know is going to be on for a while. And if I can hang on, it'll make my career. Like I'll be able to ride it up. So, but if I can't hang on and I don't, I get fired or I don't get brought back, that happens all. Like people don't get brought back to shows all the time. It's not like your career's over, but it's like, but if I get fired from the show, the best show ever, people are gonna be like, oh, you couldn't like the best writers, you're not going to be like, oh, that hack didn't recognize how talented you are. You're like, no, the guy who's the best writer here, the show, they knew you weren't good enough. Yeah. So I'm like, this is like highest risk, high reward. And then I get there and these writers are so funny, and, and like half the room are people that are on the show. Like, I'm in the room, I'm here with BJ Novak and Mindy Kaling and Paul Lieberstein, they're all there. The room was so good, like right off the bat, and Greg Daniels, who is such a nice guy, but he can be a little like cold. He's like he's cerebral, and sometimes I don't want to say he can be like I didn't always feel like he loved me at the beginning. Like he liked me enough.
Yeah, nurturing the aspect.
It's not his job to encourage me, and I'm not like that either. So this is not a judgment on him, but like I was like, oh my God, I can't hang with these people. He hates everything I'm doing. Yeah. There were 2 times in the first month when I went and I threw up in the bathroom. I'm like, this is all going away. The first time, I had to go pitch to him. We had to one-on-one go into the rooms, and I didn't and pitch a bunch of stories, and everybody else, I found this out later, was pitching 30 little things. I pitched this long drawn out story, and partway through the pitch, I'm not going to do this now because I'm on this window, but he gets out of the chair, he lies on the floor, he puts his hand over his eye, and I'm like, should I stop? He's like, no, keep going. And I'm going, and he's like, and then finally halfway through the pitch, he calls to his assistant. He's like, Mary, can you print out that document on how to write for Justin? And it was like, I'm like, this is.
Oh my! So he was having such a adverse reaction to what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
I've heard. I don't want to go. That's pretty rude, but at the same time, he obviously saw something where he's like, you know what, I want to help this guy grow, and yeah.
Yeah, and he really was. He was like a teacher, like for all of us. It was like going to grad school, so it was a little hard, but I learned so much from him.
Okay, so that's great, and I'm happy in the sense where I could just feel there's so many people hearing that and being like, okay, it's not just over. If someone there's inverted commas a bad experience, not a bad experience, but you grew. We had Brent Forrester, and I think I've had other people involved in The Office. He was a writer on The Office.
Yeah,
And he talks
Brent
about
started like 2 weeks after me. Yeah.
okay, hilarious. And he talks about how Greg Daniels was like, so important in terms of like comedy and structure and told all that stuff. So what was that document that did he create a document to help writers, or was it like a Wikipedia? This is a structure. This is a character.
No. It was. We have it somewhere. I can't. No, it's nothing. It's not like reinventing the wheel, but it's like a way of putting just down the things that he felt like were important to keep in mind, both for writing in general and then specifically for writing The Office. Just like and they were all useful things. And it does take. You have to be very confident in yourself to do it. Like on Superstore, after a year or two, I tried to do it for the writers. Again, just never to be like, this is how to write, but these are the things that I think are important. These are the things that I would look out for. And I kept stuck because I'd be like, every rule I'd put down, then I'd think of like 4 exceptions that were against the rule. And I never wanted writers to like limit themselves because they think I only want one thing and not the other thing. But it takes, and I also never felt secure enough in myself as a writer to be like, let me tell you how it's done, and Greg had just been doing it for a long time, and I think felt secure enough in himself to do it.
I have to give you credit because I don't know how I would be in that situation, but when you come from fear, or at least from my experience, if I come from fear or I'm super stressed, the creative muscle is not necessarily going to be working as strong. And then when fear comes in, we shut down. We know all this stuff. But credit to you, you had that experience where he's put his hand on his forehead. He's basically like, oy vey, what are we going to do here? You could quit, you can crumble, you can keep on vomiting in the bathroom, you can do all of these things, you could just shut down completely. But there was something in you where you like pushed through that. Not many people would be able to handle that type of pressure. What allowed you to just keep on going forward, learning and growing and becoming a great writer?
I don't know if I think there's not a handling or not. I think I could have, I guess, just like had a breakdown or something, but short of that, like I wasn't going to quit. Like I was going to keep going and eventually. So I think most people would like, keep going. And luckily, like over time, the pressure kind of subsided a little and I got to be friends more with some of the people. So all of a sudden I felt like they were being more supportive. Several of the writers were very supportive from the beginning, but like, and then it's incremental, and then you pitch a good joke, and people are more, listen to you more in the future. And I still had like the first couple of years, every year I was like, I'm not going to get brought back. It was 3 years before I felt like, okay, I can hang here. I feel I am, I deserve to be here.
See, I find this so interesting because, as I said, fear, creativity, to still keep. I know you said you're not going to quit, but you can still not quit, but you can still kind of be paralyzed in fear. It seemed like you didn't allow it. I'm sure mentally, which we all would be like this, mentally there's so much going on. It would have been probably hard to switch off outside of work. But there was still that extra like oomph where you're like, I don't know if I'm maybe putting words in your head where you're like, I'm going to prove them wrong, or what was that? Or was it just, this is a great show, I can do this? Like what was...
It's great. It wasn't like prove them wrong. It was survive, definitely. And I think maybe it did help. Like we worked real hard. That show is late nights all the time and a grind and so many episodes. And I don't know, maybe the fear kept pushing me. I don't know how I would have been if I was not panicking all the time, but that panic definitely was driving me. But there were really successful writers there who I don't think were panicking. But it definitely
they
like
showing you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I do think that that's a piece of it. I think it is good, I think, to remember as a writer in a room that like most of us are fairly insecure. Maybe at the highest levels we're not, but have some fear. And you don't always need to show it. Like I think it's not always the best move to wear your insecurities on your sleeve. Sometimes you have to keep it in. I mean, like you can talk to your friends off hours and be like, I don't know what's going on. But several times I've been with writers who really were sort of nakedly insecure, and it sort of makes everyone uncomfortable, and you don't want to sort of be with that.
I agree with that, and I heard you in another panel. I think this was, I don't know if it was American Auto I think it's American Auto, and one of the ladies, was there like ex-male? I don't know her name.
Yeah, X-Men. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Say that again.
X-Men was on American Auto.
And she was saying how every day she was so nervous and she was like filled with anxiety, and you're like, I had no idea. And I'm sure and maybe you did, and maybe you're being polite, but I would imagine, knowing me, I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and that can kind of, obviously everyone's got insecurities, and please speak to the right people, and we're all not perfect. But if you're always coming from that, as you said, it can be a bit of a vibe killer, especially in a writer's room, and then that can become, it takes away from that process, and it doesn't mean you can't speak to your superiors or other colleagues and talk about it. But if that's going on in the room, like there's already a finite balance of what makes the best writing room. And I know you and your other writing partner, it may have been Eric, I can't remember, you've spoken about, I'll just see if I've got the quote. One of you said, or you're in agreement, that one toxic, and that's not toxic, but one toxic personality can ruin a writing room. So how important to you is like the right balance of the writing room, of how you can like talk? You might not necessarily be friends, but I'm sure there's an element, if you can all, speak as equals, then you can pitch it, then people feel more comfortable. Do you have like a philosophy on the writer's room?
I mean, it's not, I have, keeping toxic people out of it. Like you want it to be people who are comfortable with each other and who aren't going to judge each other. You want to be able to say the wrong thing, like, in a without anyone getting political and trying to cancel each other. That's like the worst case scenario.
Oh, I would hate that. Yeah. Like, that's my fear.
Yeah. I mean, so that's first and foremost. And in terms of how to get there, I don't know, you do the best you can, you kind of like call for references and stuff, but sometimes it doesn't work out and you have to not bring someone back, but it can kill things. And look, there's any number of qualities about a writer that you can value and want to bring in. But I think that's first and foremost what to try to rule out. And then out of that, people will ask like, how do you put it together? And I'm always like, it's not like, you only have whatever 8 to 13 people or whatever. It's not like an old fashioned bank heist. I always say, where it's like, like I need a stick up man and I need a safe cracker and I need the face, and like it's not like that exactly. You just want as many people that bring in as many good things and can write the show. I mean, you definitely need, especially at the top, a couple really strong story people. And people that can run a room and people you can rely on. And outside of that, you want some people. Wait, is this even the question you asked? I don't know.
No, it is. And I would also imagine, it's hard to tell. Someone might be like the best writer, but might be a horrible collaborator. And I'm sure that you can't necessarily figure that out unless if it's through references. Have you ever had to, pull someone aside and be like, you need to change your attitude, or this is not going to work, but maybe not in those terms? And
let me think. I mean, I've had to, let a couple of writers go now and then. I've had, I don't know about attitude if I have, because that's a hard thing to say. You have to change your attitude. I've probably,
or like the negative, or like, that's a bad idea, or
I've probably said that. I'm sure. I think I did at one point say to one writer, try to be a little more, kind and when you say something against someone else's idea, or have something to beat it, and that kind of thing. And I've had talks where it's like, I think you're aiming for the wrong target, kind of, you don't always need to pitch something if you don't have anything, or, you're relying too much on callbacks as a crutch, like little things like that.
Yep.
I don't know how much they do in the end. I mean, generally people kind of are who they are. I found, and you just kind of have to sometimes be like, it's not going to work out for you on this show.
That's a very mature response. And are there any traits that you cannot stand as a writer?
That I can't. Well, I mean, definitely getting bringing your own things, like getting. I don't want to say getting offended, because like if another writer is doing something offensive, that's also terrible. Then you have to speak up. But being too quick to judge a person based on their pitches, I think, and that can kill a thing. Other than that, I think, if you're someone that monopolizes the room, is talking all the time and don't have that much to say, that's big. I mean, I've been pretty lucky in terms of writers. I've had, a few people that haven't worked out, but generally speaking, had like writers who had great attitudes and really like talented. But yeah, and then some writers, it's like, like I said, maybe their sensibility isn't right for that show. I mean, we had a writer, I think I can even say it, his name, like he was on season 1 of Superstore, this guy, Justin Hillian, who's like the nicest guy in the world and a ridiculously good writer. And like, just in the room, it was like, I don't know if he's getting this kind of sensibility. And so, and I didn't bring him back after the first season, and he made it so, he was so good about it. It made me, he handled it better than anyone. I'm like, I feel so bad. He's like, hey man, it's like when the coach brings the player in and it's like, I can't play you this year. I'm like, oh, I love you. And then he's gone on, I think he's run like the Chi, or the Chi, I don't know how to pronounce it, for like the last 4 years. He's probably won awards. I mean, he's having so much success, and I couldn't be happier. And it's like, that was just a thing where like, I don't know if he was right, or maybe he was just quiet because he was nervous and a staff writer. But sometimes it's like someone is indisputably an incredibly talented writer with a really bright future. And it was like, I don't know if that was the right show for him at that point in his career.
That's okay. That's great. Like you mentioned with the sketch show, may have not been right for you. Doesn't mean you're not a good writer. Very important. And just while this also springs to mind, talking about, and we're not going to get into politics or anything, but, talk about with not necessarily the word offensive, because that can be quite, people can jump to so many different conclusions, but, or at least having patience with writers and if they're pitching things like a show like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I love it. I think that's one of the greatest shows. That's a hard show, I would imagine, the writer's room, where if you could pitch something, because that they don't actually believe all that they're saying, they're doing it in a funny way, they're laughing at necessarily the joke. If you don't have the right mix in a show like that, where people are gonna be like, you're this or you're that show's not going to work. So it is important to kind of, just take a step back and realize, wait, just hear where they're going. There's so many elements, there's deep layers. So I always use that as a show where I'm like, whoa, that has to be the right mix, because if you've got certain people who are not quite getting the angle of that show, that is not going to work. But
no, I know a number of, Eric Legend, who created this, he used to write on that, and I've had other friends who've been writers on the show too. And yeah, I think they know enough. I think you go into that show knowing that is what it is. And I also think, like, 101 on all this stuff is like, you are pitching for something a character believes, or a character. That doesn't mean you share that belief, and you have to be able to separate those.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you get comedy from pitching for offensive characters, and every character on that show is offensive, and it's the best. I love that show.
Okay, great. I love that take. And tying up with The Office, after The Office, so there's you fill in my gaps. You had originally written American Auto. I don't think it went ahead. You then change American Auto and then form it into Superstore. When you get a show like Superstore, it's a massive show. There's so many, moving pieces. This is very different from The Office in terms of you're now running it. Did the leadership from Greg Daniels and all the other people, did that help you with leadership and management, or was it still like, well, what's going on here? Because that would be also a shock to the system, because it's not just the writing now that you're in charge of.
Yeah, well, if you think, I would say, after The Office, I pitched American Auto. It didn't go. Then I pitched Superstore the next year. I took one or two elements from American Auto, but it wasn't like I changed American Auto to it. It was a different show, but there were I robbed a few things from it. Greg on The Office was really good at, compared to most bosses, of like, yes, teaching us to write, but also like the writer was on set and was in editing and was in the sound mix and really kind of like produced their episode. And it's something that I've tried to do for writers too, because a lot of shows don't. It's like you write it, and then especially with these like shorter orders and stuff, it's like, okay, write the script. And I know writers who like have never been on set, and editing. And so like he was as good as a person could be with that. But you don't really know it all until you're in it. Like, running a show is its own thing. And I remember, we made that show. I'd shot one or two other pilots before that. I'd had a couple cells. I'd shot one pilot, just one other that didn't go. And so you're running a pilot, but that's just one thing.
Yeah.
And then, but then all of a sudden you're there and it's on you. And I remember being kind of surprised. I didn't say anything, but I kept waiting for them to be like, okay, and we're going to pair you with this experienced showrunner. And at a certain point, they just didn't say it. And I was like, oh, they're just going to let me run this. I mean, I don't know it's not like there's a training to run a show. I mean, the Writers Guild had this like seminar you could do, but it didn't teach you all that much. So at a certain point, you do just have to do it and kind of sink or swim. And I brought in this team, Gabe Miller and Jonathan Green. They were on the last season of The Office with me, and they were just they'd never run a show either, but really talented guys and just like really responsible, hardworking guys. So, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's all figure this out. And so, like, the three of us, we took another friend of ours who was a showrunner out for lunch and asked him a bunch of questions, but just kind of like got into it. And thank God for them. I mean, I would have definitely sunk without them helping up, like helping me through it. But yeah, I mean, and then it really is, you hire those few key people. I mean, you get a line producer who knows what he's doing. You get those department heads, they know what they're doing. Most of being a showrunner is being able to run the writer's room and then being in editing and those things, I think, rather than picking out every single costume and stuff. I mean, you just don't have time for everything. And it was still miserable. I mean, I was miserable. It was so hard. I don't never want to go through that again. But yeah.
In terms of miserable, in terms of so many different people are asking you different things and there's just overwhelmed with time. Is that what?
Yeah. The time, a lot of notes early on. So it's like writing draft after draft after draft. And I think it was probably good in retrospect, if I'm being honest, because I think it did make the show better in the end. And I kind of learned a lot then too. And I think now when I did American Auto, certainly, and I don't run St. Denis, but like, they trusted me more on American Auto, and then St. Denis, I think they trusted us. I think I needed to earn that trust. So that first season was just not sleeping at all and not seeing my newborn daughter at all. And sometimes I'll say to her, I'll be like, I feel so bad I wasn't there at all when you were a baby. She's like, I don't remember any of that, Dad. Like, it all worked out fine.
Well, that's
but yeah, it really was. What was it? Trial by fire? Not trial by fire, something by fire. Right.
Isn't that crazy? Because, you're living my dream. By the way, Superstore, amazing show. I've had half the cast on. It has influenced my writing. I think it's an incredible show. But, using me as an example, I'm just so excited to get a show out there. You get the show out, but then there's all of these things happening and you probably aren't able to enjoy it in the moment. I'm sure now with reflection, but isn't that kind of crazy? You get your dream. This is the thing that you've been working to or working towards for your career. And there's all of this. What were you mentally? Were you like, how am I going to get out of this, or what? Not out of this, but how am I going to flourish with this? What was it was just like day by day?
What you said is exactly right. Like, not enjoying it. I never enjoyed it at all while I was running it. Like, because I ran it for the first 4 years, and the last 2 years I left, and Gabe and Jonathan took over running it day to day. And it was, like that first season, just trying to get through it was great, and I didn't know if it would ever come back again. And now it's easy to look back on and be like, oh, and it was really good, and it's found an audience. And even at the time, it always felt like we were like under the radar a little. I think more people have discovered it sort of like over COVID and stuff after it was already done.
Yep.
But like, even when we started having like, even those moments that you're supposed to be like, oh, things are going well, I could never enjoy. Like, I went to New York for the upfronts, like advertising. I'm like at the big, like fancy, like UTA parties. It's like, you're supposed to make it. I'm reading like writer's specs on my phone in the corner. Or it's like season 3, I got to go to they flew me to like Monte Carlo for some award. I'm like, this is baller. Like, I can't believe I'm doing it. I just wrote in my room the whole time. Like, I was never enjoying any of the things you're supposed to enjoy, and I'm proud of it in retrospect. But during it, I would not even kidding. Like, I'd be up at 2 a.m. writing and looking on Google of like, how old is too old to go to law school? Like, I was like, I just don't think this is for me.
Oh, really?
And I was about to actually leave after season 2. I had decided to it's just not worth it. And I told America. And we took a walk, and she's like, I don't think the show is at a place yet for you to hand it off. And she convinced me to stay.
That's crazy. Good on her. And I'm glad that you did it. Now, obviously, you've learned so much, not only leadership, how how, being a writing room, but also all of these other skills, I'm sure you would look back at it and be like, look how much I've grown and evolved. But has that changed how, yeah, it's actually, I'll ask this, like, what is the success for you in terms of running shows or getting a shows out there? Because that would have changed your perspective. Did you have like, success is 10 seasons and that's the only way to see it? Like, how have you changed, that relationship?
I had that. I mean, like I never thought Superstore would even run as many seasons as it did. Like I remember I had to like come up with like the production tag thing they put at the end. It's just like mandated. Mine's like, and I was like, oh, I have 2 seconds. Can't I just use that for show time? Like I can get another joke. They're like, no, it's got. So I made it Spitzer Holding Company because I'm like, this could be the only show I ever get. Like I want my name again, so people will remember that I did this thing. But you're saying like what? Yeah, so it's never been like at what point is it a success or a failure? I mean, like 6 seasons, I think you would have to say is a success. American Auto went just 2, but I'm still incredibly proud of what we did creatively, and I think it was very much on the bubble. And so I don't look back at that as like necessarily a failed show. It was a show that like I wish we could have had another season. But I will say one thing, and I remember thinking when you were asking like, have I gotten better at pitching and stuff? And I think all those like yes now when I'm running a show or pitching a show, I know more. But I think because I've had a couple shows now on the air, people are willing to give me a little more leeway with things, which makes pitching easier. Like, and so it makes getting a show on because easier, like scripts, because it's just like the people will like trust you a little more. So like on American Auto, we did this episode that was all about like diversity and on television, about like representation, or more that it was about a commercial and they realized they didn't have any gay representation, and then it was about race, and it was like a lot of very politically sensitive topics. And I was like, are they gonna, and I know there was some nervousness behind the scenes, but I'd done it in things like that enough times on Superstore that they trusted me enough to get them a script. Whereas like if that had been my first, episode 3 of my first show ever, I think it would have been a lot harder. So it becomes a little easier as you gain trust.
Very interesting. And I've got so many questions on Superstore, but we'll see how we go. And when did you, is it with time where you look back and be like, look what I've been able to do? I love to, because when you're in it, sounds like it was so unbelievably challenging, but obviously you can look back and go 6 seasons. First of all, actually, I'm jumping the gun, but I'm sure even just getting a show up 2 seasons to me is a huge success. Like that's incredible. When did you realize and go, look what I've been, not in an arrogant way, like I'm really proud of what this show was?
Well, I was always very proud of Superstore. I mean, I was, if anything, like I felt like not a lot of people were watching it. I mean, some were, but like, and I was just like, I really think this show is really, really good. And there's also the part of me that recognized that you always think what you worked on was really good. And so like, I don't know if that's true. And I left after season 4. It was kind of like I was kind of ground down. I needed to see my family, and I was like tired. But I was also like, I don't know, this show's never going to be the big show, and I think it has grown since. So I was always creatively really, really proud of it. Nice. And then I felt like, maybe anecdotally, but it's felt like in COVID and stuff, I kept hearing more and more people discovering it and getting
so popular.
Yeah, or like our cast would be like, oh, we were in Europe, and Netflix never carried it in America, but they carried it more internationally. And I think that was a part of it. So like, Ben or America, they would be like, oh, I was in Italy and England or wherever, and all these people are recognizing me. And it was like, oh, okay, maybe we were a show that has like more of a tail. So creatively, always very proud of it. And then an additional bit of pride at that point.
It's because I've had so many of the cast on. And I think I discovered it during lockdowns, and that's when I probably interviewed most of the cast. Cannot, and I'm in a lot, because I've had a lot of the guests on, I'm in a lot of Superstore groups. I cannot believe how unbelievably popular it has grown after the show had finished, or had it finished, or was like at the end, but
it was just at the end there, yeah.
Yeah, and the amount of like comments and what I've seen from it is a big show. It's a shame that you didn't potentially realize how big it, or maybe the numbers or whatever it is wasn't as big, but for a show to get huge after it's ended, that is rare. That's pretty awesome.
It's very, very gratifying. It's sort of like, it's that dream you tell yourself is going to happen one day, but it usually doesn't. So yeah, it's yeah.
And before we do a rapid fire segment, are there any regrets or learnings or things that you potentially wish you could have done differently and you maybe, applied to American Auto or St. Dennis or any of these things?
I'm always learning little things. I mean, I've got really micro, like there's, little arc things, little creative decisions. I should have done this instead of that. And same with American Auto, but nothing, nothing huge where I'm like, oh, this would have changed things in any big way. And sometimes it's like, what would have been like if I stayed with the show longer? Although, I mean, Gabe and Jonathan did such an amazing job, a largely thankless job, taking over and running a show that was already going. Like that's not easy at all, and they're the best. But you can always say like, well, this decision or that decision. But it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Like I feel happy with where my life is, where my career is, the shows I have, and you can say like, oh, I wish I'd done this differently or that differently, but then would I have landed here? It's like if you're happy in your marriage, you can be like, why didn't I date more when I was younger? That would have been great. But it's like, well, then maybe I wouldn't have met my wife who I love and had these children that I love. So I don't have any true regrets.
I think that's really awesome. And also, and no judgment to others, you also factored in family. A lot of people, when they're making career decisions, that's not necessarily a factor to want to spend more time with your family. I think that's really important. And that's a success in itself.
It's definitely a balance. Although I have of late stopped, like I'd always be like, no, but family is the most important thing. And it is. But like, I think I have pride. I'm proud of what I do. I like what I do. So yeah, it is finding that balance. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Before we do a rapid fire segment, I just want to talk about St. Denis Medical. New season coming out. How does that feel? That must be like the best feeling that one can feel.
Absolutely. I mean, and I want to be honest. Like, so this season, I was really season one. I was always there. Season two, I've been there a day or two a week. I mean, so it's like, and so I'm so excited for the season. Like, I'm proud that they've just been doing it all. I mean, I don't want to say I'm like going to watch it as a viewer and I have no idea what's happening, but I feel like I'm going to be able to watch it a little more freshly than I've been able to watch something else. So yeah.
You know what's also really interesting, and I won't segue too far. I've had quite a few of the showrunners of The Simpsons on the podcast, and they're at a point in their career, and great for them, where they were on at some stage where they would go in like 2 or 3 days or maybe even once a week because, they built up the show. They're a lot further in their career, obviously. And that's a beautiful balance for them, help out the show. Any questions people can ask, you're still involved. You might not necessarily have you said the 2 a.m.s all the time. And that's like a great balance and you can still contribute and you still get, the best of both worlds. So I think, that's also a huge success in itself.
It truly is the best job a person. I mean, when you're coming up as a young writer, it's really fun being in the room, but you have all this pressure of like, am I going to get fired? I need to prove myself, like, and stuff. And then when you're running a show, you're not going to get fired, but like, oh my God, it's all on you and late nights and stuff. And now it's like, I get to go in the room. They can't fire me contractually. I don't think they want to, but they can't. And it's not, and if there's a late night, and Eric is such an amazingly organized runner, so there's not a lot of late nights, but like, I'm not the guy that's responsible for it in the end. So I highly, highly recommend showrunner emeritus or whatever you want to call me.
Oh, cool. That's hilarious. And I love your take. What we're going to do now to wrap up the podcast is to do a rapid fire segment. Okay. You can take your time. I'm not going to comment on them. I'll derail them. I'm going to start with the fan questions, and then there are a lot, and then I will use some of mine, but we'll see whose is who. Anything else on St. Denis Medical before we do this? Anything you want to say?
Oh God!
I know I put you on the spot. That's the hardest question. I apologize.
Anything else on St. Denis? No, I mean, like, the table reads have been so good. I think the cast is just firing. I'm excited to see where it goes this year. But no,
that's else. Great. You've sold it. Okay, we'll do the rapid fire segment. This one is the most controversial. You don't have to answer any of them. I built this up, but who's the best actor you've worked with?
That is controversial. I don't know. That's hard. I mean, like, getting to work with like Steve Carell felt like, oh, I'm with a movie star. That's That's crazy. But I mean, really, I will say no. You know, what, that's all I'm going to. I was about to talk about cast cohesions, and I'm like, people will feel bad. I've been very lucky. I've had some great people I've collaborated with.
I don't really have a question, but just a few people asked about this. I know that there were potentially a few Superstore spin-offs. I've had Nicole Sakura and Johnny Pemberton, who were, I forgot, Bo and
Bowen Cheyenne.
yeah.
Cheyenne. Mhm.
Were you going to be involved in those spin-offs? Do you get told about them? What?
So there was just that one that was pitched that was going to be written by Bridget Kyle and Vicky Liu, who are incredibly talented writers. They now help Eric run St. Denis, and that was, I think we got as far as sorry, I'm struck. I think we got as far as a script maybe, and I was involved like giving notes as an executive producer, but that was it. There have been two. There's a Mexican like remake or reformat called like Super Titlan or something that ran
The
for
South African one that's coming
it's
out.
a South African one they're doing now, which in Zulu or something. So I don't know this.
Ah,
I don't really have much to do with them other than I hear every now and then about them. But yeah, no other spinoffs.
which show? I think you answered this. Which show have you been involved in where you had the most fun?
Right, the most fun. I mean, I guess it would have to be The Office. It was stressful, only by the fact that like I wasn't running it, and so I had some stressful times, but a lot of fun then too.
I get that. And you're not going to answer this. So if you don't answer it, I'll ask another version.
Okay.
Funniest person you've worked with. But if you don't want to answer that, who's the person that makes you laugh the most? It doesn't need to be as an actor, just someone you meet and you always just laugh.
Um, yeah, the funniest person I've ever, I mean, I think I mentioned Craig Robinson before is just like as an actor is hilarious. So many people but yeah, what was it? I mean, I'll say someone I've worked with. It's hard for me to be like the best, whatever, but
Yeah.
I was before Superstore that season, I was a writer on the Mulaney show, John Mulaney show, and John Mulaney is insanely funny. I don't know if I've ever been in a room with someone just so innately funny.
And this is one of my favorite people on the planet. How great is it to work with Wendy McClendon Covey?
She is a delight. Yeah, just has zero ego. Like I don't think she knows she's a celebrity.
Yeah. She told me a story. I think she was still working in, I forgot what it's called. People can check it out, so don't misquote me. Still in like the admin type accounting thing that she did when she had been in all like Bridesmaids and other shows. And she's like, I'm just doing this. I'm like, okay, you're a rare human.
It makes me so happy. People like that can be still so nice at that point in their careers. Yeah.
And this came up a lot. You don't need to answer it as well. Then all the other ones, I think you will. But why did Josh Lawson / Tate not come back in Superstore? So many people wanted his character back, and I know you guys have got him in St. Denis Medical, but did something happen there?
I'm trying. Nothing happened. I want to say at some point he got on something that we couldn't get him as much as we wanted to one season. And I think creatively he was so funny. We probably should have brought him in even more, but like he was sort of a pharmacist in his own world, and it didn't seem as organic to have him be. And that character was, was a strong cup of coffee, so we didn't use him that much. But yeah, we definitely had a season where we wanted to use him more, and we couldn't.
He's the Australian golden child, I hear from many people.
Did you know that he never goes out of his American accent all season when he's
I
here?
heard from someone because a lot of the cast are like, "Oh, you're Australian, you must know." I don't know him at all, but so he just keeps it the entire time.
I'll set I'll at the very end of the season I'll be talking to him and he'll go back into Australia. It's like, oh my God, right. That's what he's yeah.
Well, that's a great actor. Best part of working on Scrubs, you may have also have answered this.
I mean, I worked on it for so little time. It was cool. The thing that was cool about that show was they shot in an actual decommissioned hospital, so you could walk around and it was a real thing. And we shot St. Denis pilot in the hospital, but now we're just on stages. But it was cool to be like, oh, the people's offices are just hospital rooms. Yeah.
Cool. Favorite episode of The Office and why?
Favorite episode is Dinner Party. Just a very, I think, popular thing. That's the group goes over to Michael and Jan's apartment for dinner. I mean, it's just a perfect episode written by Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupnitsky, and that script that you see is essentially their first draft, and it's just it's like a play. It's like an amazing one act play.
I think you're also one of the only, I know I said I wouldn't comment, one of the only people not to include their own episodes. So that's, speak
Oh,
about Randy
really?
not
People
having
say
an
their own
ego.
episode?
Yeah, you have no ego. And now I hope this is one of your episodes, but what's your favorite episode of Superstore?
Favorite. A lot I like. I mean, just for the end, I am so proud of our finale, and yeah, that is one that I co-wrote with Miller and Green. So yeah, there's a bunch that I'm really proud of with that one, but the finale just there's so much pressure on the finale, and it was during COVID, and to nail a finale is so hard. So I'm still pretty proud of myself.
Well done. You know,
Proud of the
everyone,
staff. But, yeah.
say that again.
I said I was proud of myself, but I was proud of the staff. It was not, but
Well,
proud of
that's
the
like
show.
team
Yeah.
effort. And as you know, this everyone has an opinion on shows, especially shows that go on for so long. How do you deal with potentially negative feedback, negative reviews? Maybe how do you deal with that if you do?
Yeah, you get a little. I mean, you get annoyed at some. You read reviews. You tell yourself that the people who didn't like it are hacks that don't get the show, and the people that do like it are geniuses. I don't know, and the rest kind of rolls off. I'm not on social media very much, really, so it didn't ever bug me too much, I guess. Or I guess I didn't know what people were saying. Or
No, I haven't seen anything. I'm just curious if like the network
no,
gives you a piece of paper and be like, this is what so and so said,
yeah, no, it was. I won't want to say like I'm not one of those people who's like I don't read the reviews or something. Like I'd read them and I would get annoyed by them, but in the end, I don't know. You move on.
How did Garrett end up on the wheelchair?
Oh man, we made it. I had a lot of thoughts, and every now and then I debate saying it. And we did an episode about how the fact that like saying it would ruin it, whether he was born that way or not. So we made the decision to just never say.
You're going to tell me off air, and I'll never tell Sol. But funny, I don't know. We said that. Any storylines you wanted to add or scenes you wanted to add, but you couldn't, maybe due to budget reasons, timing, all of that stuff on
Oh
Sol?
God,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I am now. I'm so struggling though to think that they were.
Yeah, some of these are hard, but I appreciate all
Yeah.
the fan ones.
No, it's so nice. I want to be able to. Wait, I feel like there was one story I always wanted to do, and now I can't. I cannot think of.
Do not stress. And if it comes back, we can come back to it.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
go to the next one. Who was the killer in Superstore, and was it Elijah's?
I don't. I think it would probably have to have been him. I mean, I don't see any way around it. We never in our mind were like thought it was him and had any ideas. It was just like we need to be a funny joke, and it was just him. But the whole reason we put that in, I mean, that's a whole long. This is the quick thing, but like we put it in as sort of a way for the audience to actually believe Brett was dead in 301 by having Glenn obsessed with this random foot. And then it would be like, he's telling himself the idiot actually believes it could be someone else's foot. And by the idiot believing something crazy, we were like, okay, then the audience will start actually believe Brett's dead because Glenn doesn't believe he's dead. And then from there, we would just joke about the foot every now and then. And it sort of took on a life of its own.
That just sounds so hilarious. Just having this joke that you guys are all laughing about and, adding in little bits. Next big dream or goal?
Next big dream or Joe? I have a couple shows I'm excited about that I'm writing. I'd love to do those. And then one day I would love to write a feature, write a play, something a little out of this. But right now I'll settle for write a non-workplace comedy. Just that'll be the next challenge.
Cool. That's exciting. I look forward to it. If you could go back into a time when you were first starting out writing, what advice would you give yourself and why?
I would. I'm not going to say something trite like "don't give up, just believe in yourself" because that's just. I would say I would say two things. I would say remember the audience. Don't write for yourself. Like be trying to write for people. And I would say do more, see more, go to more comedy, read more. To this day I'm like I should have been doing more. Like the more you feed the machine, the more it generates.
Good advice. Last question before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you. What's the one question I should have asked you?
The one question you should have asked me. Oh God. I can't think of anything. I'm not real good at these things.
We'll agree to disagree. This has been great.
Yeah, no, but I mean, in terms of these things,
Yep.
I really can't. I'm sorry, I can't think of anything. You did a great job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
Good luck. I don't know. I think I got a Twitter account, and Instagram, but I don't post anything. I'm just not one of those people. They can watch the shows that come out.
Cool.
I've never been. I'm not like I've always been like, I don't want to jump into that whole cesspool and be trying to think about what to do. So yeah.
I will find your social media handles and they're in the episode notes below so people can check it out.
Okay, I truly don't even know what they are, but it's probably my name.
I'll find them. People
Okay.
check it out. Thank you. You're very uplifting. You've got a wonderful forward-moving mindset. And yeah, I really appreciate this chat and all that you've done. And yeah, thank you so much.
Really nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
I really admire Justin's mindset around incremental progress. The idea that success doesn't have to happen all at once. He recognizes that even the smallest steps forward are still movements in the right direction. Justin's reflection that growth isn't always linear really resonates with me. Sometimes the path may twist and turn, but every experience contributes to our journey. He spoke about how, in the moment, our dreams or goals can feel overwhelming, even chaotic, yet it's often during those challenging times that we develop the resilience and skills we need for long-term success. While those periods may feel uncomfortable, this reminds us that one day we'll look back at our challenges, hopefully with a smile, grateful for how far we've come. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Little by little, one travels far. J.R.R. Tolkien.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.